Ambassador Chen stood in the center of the judgment pit. The circular platform was small, barely 10 feet across. Above her, thousands of alien faces looked down from their seats. The chamber was massive, built to hold representatives from 847 different species. The walls curved upward like a giant bowl, and every seat was filled today. Chen had been here many times before. For 200 years, humanity had asked to join the Galactic Council as full members. For 200 years, the answer had been no. Humans were allowed to watch. They were allowed to listen. But they had no vote and no voice in the decisions that affected the entire galaxy. Today was different. Today, the Council would make a final decision. Either humanity would finally be accepted, or they would be expelled from Council space forever. There was no middle ground this time. The Council speaker rose from his seat at the top of the chamber. Thexulon was old, even by the standards of his insectoid species. His body was covered in dark blue chitin, and his 4 eyes gleamed as he looked down at Chen. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into every language. The Council will now vote on the human question, Thexulon announced. Should humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, or should they be expelled from Council space? Cast your votes. Chen watched as lights appeared above each delegate's seat. Green for yes, red for no, yellow for abstain. The lights came quickly. Too quickly. Most delegates had made up their minds long before entering the chamber. The red lights far outnumbered the green. It was not even close. When the voting ended, Thexulon looked at the results displayed on his console. He nodded slowly, as if this was exactly what he had expected. The vote is complete, he said. 782 against, 41 in favor, 24 abstentions. The motion fails. Humanity is denied membership and is hereby expelled from Council space. A wave of sound rolled through the chamber. Some species cheered. Others remained silent. A few looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up. Thexulon continued. Humanity has 10 standard years to evacuate all colonies, stations, and vessels from Council territory. This includes approximately 60% of current human-occupied space. Any humans remaining after the deadline will be considered hostile and treated accordingly. Chen felt her jaw tighten, but her face remained calm. She had been a diplomat for 30 years. She knew how to hide her emotions. Beside her, Captain Sarah Okonkwo stood at attention in her military uniform. Chen could see the anger in Sarah's eyes, but the captain said nothing. Thexulon was not finished. The Council has determined that humanity is too aggressive, too unpredictable, and too dangerous to exist within Council space. Your species has demonstrated a pattern of violence and expansion that threatens the peace we have maintained for thousands of years. This decision is final and cannot be appealed. Chen waited until the chamber fell silent. Then she spoke, her voice calm and clear. The human delegation acknowledges the Council's decision, she said. We will comply with all terms. Our colonies and stations will be evacuated within the given time frame. She paused, looking up at the thousands of faces above her. Then she added, I want the Council to remember one thing. For 200 years, humanity asked for permission. We asked to join your Council. We asked to be part of your system. We asked to follow your rules. Her voice grew quieter, but somehow it seemed to fill the chamber even more. You have made your choice, Chen said. Now you will learn why we asked to join you, rather than simply taking our place. With that, she turned and walked toward the exit. Captain Okonkwo followed her. The chamber remained silent until the doors closed behind them. Outside, in the corridor leading to the human delegation's ship, Okonkwo finally spoke. What happens now? She asked. Chen did not slow her pace. Now we go home. We tell Earth what happened. And then we prepare. Prepare for what? Chen looked at the captain. For the first time since the vote, she allowed herself to show emotion. A cold smile crossed her face. For what comes next, she said. The Council thinks we are dangerous when we ask for permission. Let them see what happens when we stop asking. Back in the Council chamber, Thexelon watched the human delegation depart on the viewing screen. Around him, other delegates began to file out, already discussing how to divide up the territory that humanity would soon abandon. A young delegate from the Pelthian species approached him. "Speaker, was this wise? The humans have considerable military strength. What if they resist?" Thexelon waved a chitinous hand dismissively. "The humans are loud and aggressive, but they are weak. They have always followed our rules. They have always asked for permission. Without council support, they will crumble. This problem will solve itself." The Pelthian delegate nodded and left. Thexelon remained in his seat, looking at the empty judgment pit below. He had been in the council for 300 years. He had seen many species rise and fall. The humans would be no different. In 10 years, they would be gone from council space, reduced to a minor power in some distant corner of the galaxy. The council had made its decision. The vote was complete. The matter was closed. Thexelon had no way of knowing that this vote would be remembered as the greatest mistake in council history. He had no way of knowing that humanity's final words in the chamber were not a threat, but a warning. And he had no way of knowing that in exactly 10 years, the galaxy would look very different than it did today. The countdown had begun. The Great Withdrawal began 3 months after the vote. All across council space, human colonies started packing up. Ships arrived to carry people and equipment away. Stations that had orbited alien worlds for generations were slowly dismantled. To the council species watching, it looked like an organized retreat. Humans loaded their belongings onto transport ships and departed in orderly convoys. They left behind empty buildings and abandoned infrastructure. They seemed cooperative and defeated, but that was not the whole truth. On the colony world of Kepler 442b, farmer Marcus Webb stood in his field and watched the sky. The crops were ready for harvest, but there would be no harvest this year. In 2 weeks, the last transport ship would arrive. Every human on the planet had to be gone by then. Marcus had lived on Kepler 442b for 40 years. He had built his farm from nothing. The soil here was rich and perfect for earth crops. His family had been happy here. Now they had to leave it all behind. A shadow passed overhead. Marcus looked up and saw a ship descending toward the nearby town. But it was not a human ship. The design was wrong. It was Vraken. The Vraken were one of the more aggressive council species. They were large, reptilian, and had a reputation for taking what they wanted. Marcus had heard reports that Vraken ships had been visiting human colonies, claiming they were just exploring the territory that would soon be available. But everyone knew what they were really doing. They were looting. They were taking whatever they could carry before the humans officially left. Marcus walked back to his house and opened a locked cabinet in his basement. Inside was his old military rifle and body armor. He had served in the Terran Marines for 20 years before becoming a farmer. He knew how to fight. He was not the only one. Most of the farmers on Kepler 442b were former military. That was common in frontier colonies. The council had always assumed that made humans dangerous. They had been right, but not in the way they thought. By the time the Vraken raiders reached the farming district, they found a very different reception than they expected. The humans were not running. They were not hiding. They were waiting, armed and ready. The fight was short and brutal. The Vraken had assumed that humans without council protection would be easy targets. They learned differently. Within an hour, the raiding party was dead. Not a single human farmer was killed. Marcus stood over the body of the Vraken leader and shook his head. "You should have waited," he said quietly. "Just a few more weeks and this would have been yours anyway. Now you will never see it." News of the incident spread quickly. The council sent investigators, but by the time they arrived, the humans were already gone. The Vraken bodies had been loaded onto the raiders' own ship and sent back to their homeworld with a simple message attached. "Stay away until we leave." In orbit above Earth, Admiral Sarah Okonkwo reviewed reports from across human space. She had been promoted after the vote and given command of something new, the Terran Defense Mandate. It was officially described as a reorganization of human military forces to manage the withdrawal. In reality, it was much more than that. "The incident on Kepler 442b is going to cause problems," said her chief of staff. Commander Liu Okonkwo nodded. "Let it. The Council needs to understand that we are leaving because we choose to, not because we are afraid. If other species try to steal from us before we go, they need to know there will be consequences. What about Protocol Prometheus? Liu asked quietly. Okonkwo smiled slightly. Already activated. Every colony and station has received the signal. Phase 1 is complete. Phase 2 begins in 6 months. Liu looked nervous. Admiral, if the Council discovers what we are really doing, they will not, Okonkwo said firmly. They think we are weak and disorganized. They think the withdrawal is chaotic and desperate. Let them think that. By the time they realize the truth, it will be too late. Across human space, the withdrawal continued. But behind the scenes, something else was happening. Cargo ships were not just carrying people away from Council territory. They were also carrying equipment, raw materials, and advanced technology. In secret shipyards hidden in asteroid fields and remote star systems, construction had already begun. New ships were being built. Not just any ships, but warships designed specifically to fight Council vessels. Engineers worked around the clock, using every lesson humanity had learned from 200 years of watching Council technology. Dr. James Cahill stood in the main laboratory of Facility 7, a massive underground complex on Mars. On the screen in front of him, test results scrolled past. Everything was working perfectly. The railgun test exceeded expectations, reported his assistant. The projectile reached 95% of light speed. Impact force was 3 times what we projected. Cahaley nodded. Good, and the shield penetration? Complete. Council standard shields have no defense against relativistic projectiles. They are designed to stop energy weapons and slow-moving missiles, not solid objects traveling at near light speed. Cahill allowed himself a small smile. Then we proceed to full production. How long until we have enough for the fleet? 8 years, assuming current production rates. If we increase to maximum capacity, we can do it in 6. Increase to maximum capacity, Kahali ordered. We have 10 years total. I want everything ready with time to spare. Back in Council space, representatives of various species began moving into abandoned human territory. They claimed empty stations and vacant colonies. They celebrated their victory over the aggressive humans. Speaker Thexulon watched it all with satisfaction. The human problem was solving itself exactly as he had predicted. In a few more years, humanity would be completely gone from Council space, reduced to a minor power with no influence. Some of his advisors were not so confident. Speaker, our intelligence services report that they cannot gather information from human space. One advisor said during a private meeting, every probe we send disappears. Every spy we plant is discovered and returned to us. Thexulon waved a hand dismissively. So the humans are being secretive. It means nothing. They are probably just embarrassed by their defeat. Perhaps, the advisor said carefully. But what if they are planning something? Planning what? Thexulon asked with amusement. They are leaving Council space. They have 10 years to evacuate. What could they possibly be planning? The advisor had no answer, but the question remained. 3 years after the vote, humanity completed its withdrawal. They finished 2 years early. Every human colony, station, and vessel left Council space ahead of schedule. The borders of human territory were sealed and then silence. No communications came from human space. No ships entered or left. It was as if humanity had simply vanished behind a wall. The Council celebrated. The problem was solved. The dangerous humans were gone, but behind that wall, humanity was not idle. They were building. They were preparing, and they were waiting. The countdown continued. 5 years after the vote, Council intelligence agencies still could not see into human space. Every probe they sent across the border vanished without a trace. Every attempt to plant spies ended in failure. The few agents who made it past the border were discovered within days and sent back with polite but firm warnings. The humans had sealed themselves off completely. No trade ships entered or left their territory. No diplomatic messages were sent. No news or broadcast leaked out. It was a total information blackout. Director Chen sat in her office on Earth and reviewed the latest border reports. She had returned home after the vote and taken a new position as Director of Galactic Affairs. It was her job to manage humanity's relationship with the Council, or rather the lack of one. Another probe destroyed at the border, her assistant reported. That makes 347, Chen nodded. Good, let them waste their resources. Every probe they send is one less they have for actual threats. Do you think they suspect anything? The assistant asked. Of course they suspect, Chen said. But suspicion is not the same as knowledge. They cannot see what we are doing. They cannot prove anything, and by the time they figure it out, it will not matter. She pulled up a classified report on her screen. The Terran defense perimeter was nearly complete. Thousands of automated defense stations now ringed human space. Each one was equipped with weapons that could destroy a ship in seconds. Together they formed a wall that would be nearly impossible to breach. But that was just the beginning. In the council chambers, debates about humanity had become rare. Most delegates had moved on to other concerns. The human question was solved. The dangerous species was gone. There were more important matters to discuss, but not everyone had forgotten. A group of aggressive species had been watching the human border with interest. The Vrakan Confederacy, the Thirxian Empire, and the Zelkor Dominion were all expansionist powers. They had been held back by council rules and regulations for centuries, but they saw an opportunity. Human space was valuable. The systems humanity had abandoned were rich in resources. The systems humanity still controlled were even better. And with humanity cut off from the council, there would be no one to stop an invasion. General Vexthor of the Vrakan Confederacy met secretly with his counterparts from the other two empires. They gathered on a neutral station far from council oversight. The humans are weak, Vexthor said. They ran from the council without fighting. They hide behind their borders because they know they cannot defend themselves. Commander Thrix of the Thirxian Empire nodded. My scouts have tested their defenses. Some automated stations guard the border, but nothing our fleets cannot overcome. The humans appear to have scattered their forces. They are disorganized. Then we are agreed, said High Chancellor Zelkor. We invade in 2 years. That gives us time to prepare our fleets and coordinate our attack. We split human space 3 ways. Everyone gains territory and resources. The 3 leaders shook hands, or the equivalent for their species. The coalition was formed. Council intelligence learned about the coalition within weeks. It was impossible to hide the movement of entire fleets. The question was what to do about it. Speaker Thexelon called an emergency session to discuss the matter. The chamber was only half full. Many delegates did not see this as important enough to attend. We have confirmed that 3 member species are planning to invade human space, Thexelon announced. Should the council intervene? A Pelthian delegate stood. The humans are no longer under council protection. They chose to leave. Why should we defend them? Another delegate from the Korthian Federation added, if these 3 empires want to fight the humans, let them. Either the humans will be crushed, or they will crush the invaders. Either way, the council benefits. What if the humans win and then seek revenge against the council for not helping them? Asked a cautious delegate from the Mirren Collective. Thexelon laughed. The humans cannot even defend their own territory. How would they threaten us? No, this is not our concern. Let the warmongers learn their lesson. Let the humans learn theirs. The council will not interfere. The vote was not even close. The council would do nothing. The decision reached human space within hours. Chen Wei read the report and smiled coldly. They have given us exactly what we needed, she said to her staff. Permission to defend ourselves without council interference. Should we warn the coalition? Someone asked. No, Chen said. Let them come. Let them see what we have built. On Mars, Dr. Kahal walked through the main production facility and felt a sense of pride. Row after row of railguns stretched into the distance. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering, capable of firing projectiles at speeds that made them unstoppable. All weapon systems are operational, his lead engineer reported. The fleet is ready. Ground forces are equipped. The defense perimeter is at full strength. And the new ships? Kahal asked. The Prometheus-class warships exceeded all expectations. They are faster, more powerful, and better armored than anything the Council has. We have completed 300 with more in production. Kahale nodded. Then we are ready. When the invasion comes, we will show them what humanity can do. Admiral Okonkwo stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Terran Defiance. It was a Prometheus-class warship, the pride of the new fleet. Around her, holographic displays showed the positions of every human military asset. Fleet status? She asked. All ships are in position, her tactical officer reported. We have early warning systems deployed along every likely invasion route. The moment they cross the border, we will know. Good, Okonkwo said. How long until the invasion? Intelligence estimates 18 months to 2 years. The coalition is still gathering its forces. Okonkwo smiled grimly. Let them gather. Let them bring everything they have. It will not be enough. As the 8th year after the vote approached, one final incident occurred. A Thirxian scout fleet entered human space to test the defenses. It consisted of 50 ships, enough to fight through most obstacles. They crossed the border and immediately encountered the defense perimeter. Warning messages were broadcast in every language. Turn back now or be destroyed. The Thirxian commander ignored the warnings. His fleet advanced deeper into human space. They never made it more than 10 light minutes past the border. The defense stations opened fire. Railguns launched projectiles at relativistic speeds. The Thirxian shields designed to stop energy weapons might as well have been paper. In less than 5 minutes, the entire scout fleet was destroyed. No debris remained. No survivors were found. The ships had been completely vaporized by the kinetic impacts. The only thing that returned to Thirxian space was a single automated message. You were warned. Commander Thrix reviewed the sensor logs from the destroyed fleet. His blood ran cold. The humans had weapons that made Council technology look primitive. Their defenses were not weak. They were terrifying, but it was too late to back out. The coalition had committed to the invasion. The fleets were already gathering. Honor and politics demanded that they proceed. The trap was set. The countdown was almost over, and humanity was ready. Year 10 arrived. The deadline the Council had given humanity had finally come. And so had the invasion. 15,000 warships from 12 different species crossed into human space simultaneously. The coalition had spent 2 years preparing for this moment. They came in 3 massive fleets attacking from different directions to split human forces. General Vexthor commanded the Vrakan fleet from his flagship. Around him, his officers monitored the advance. Everything was going according to plan. The first wave crossed the border without resistance. No sign of human ships, his tactical officer reported. Only those automated defense stations we were warned about. Vexthor smiled. Destroy them. Clear the way for our advance. The Vrakan fleet opened fire on the defense stations. Energy weapons and missiles streaked through space. The stations did not return fire immediately. For a moment, Vexthor thought they might be unmanned and inactive. Then the stations responded. The first thing Vexthor noticed was that there were no visible weapon discharges. No bright beams of energy. No missile trails, just impacts. Ships began exploding. Not from energy weapon hits. Not from missile strikes. They simply tore apart as if struck by invisible hammers moving at impossible speeds. Shields are not stopping them, someone screamed. Whatever they are firing goes straight through. Vexthor watched in horror as his fleet died around him. The humans were using kinetic weapons. Solid projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds. The coalition shields designed to deflect energy and slow down missiles were useless. The projectiles hit with the force of small nuclear weapons. In the first hour of the invasion, 3,000 coalition ships were destroyed. The survivors tried to retreat, but more defense stations appeared from hidden positions. They had walked into a trap. On the bridge of the Terran Defiance, Admiral Okonkwo watched the battle unfold. The defense perimeter was performing exactly as designed, but she knew this was only the beginning. Deploy the fleet, she ordered. Across human space, Prometheus-class warships emerged from hiding. They had been waiting in the shadows, engines cold, virtually invisible to sensors. Now they activated and moved to intercept the invaders. The coalition commanders had never seen ships like these. They were smaller than traditional warships but moved with terrifying speed. Their hulls were made of materials that absorbed or deflected most weapons fire. And their own weapons were devastating. Commander Thyrix found himself facing a single human warship with 12 of his own vessels. It should have been an easy fight. 12 against 1. It was over in 90 seconds. The human ship moved like nothing he had ever seen. It dodged incoming fire with impossible precision. Its weapons fired constantly, each shot finding a target. Railguns tore through shields and armor. Missile swarms, guided by true artificial intelligence, hunted down ships that tried to flee. Thrix watched 11 of his ships die. His own flagship was crippled, engines destroyed, weapons offline. The human ship could have finished him easily. Instead, it moved on to the next target. He sat in his command chair, surrounded by smoke and sparks from damaged systems, and finally understood. The humans had not been hiding out of fear. They had been building. They had been preparing, and they had learned from every mistake the Council had ever made. The battle raged for 48 hours. It was not really a battle. It was a slaughter. The Coalition had brought 15,000 ships. They had expected to fight against scattered human forces and disorganized resistance. Instead, they found a military machine that had been designed specifically to destroy them. Every tactic they tried failed. Their shields could not stop kinetic weapons. Their jamming could not fool human AI targeting systems. Their numbers meant nothing when human ships could destroy 10 enemies for every one they lost. Admiral Okonkwo commanded the counterstrike from her flagship. She had spent 10 years preparing for this moment. Every scenario had been planned. Every weakness in Council military doctrine had been studied and exploited. Focus fire on their command ships, she ordered. Take out their leadership. Force them to retreat. Human strike teams targeted the Coalition flagships with precision attacks. General Vexthor died when his ship was split in half by a railgun salvo. High Chancellor Zelkor fled in an escape pod, abandoning his fleet. Commander Thrix drifted in his crippled flagship, waiting for rescue that would not come. With their leaders dead or captured, the Coalition forces broke. Ships began fleeing in all directions. Some tried to surrender. Others fought to the death. A few managed to escape back across the border. When the battle ended, 14,100 Coalition ships had been destroyed. 900 survived to limp back to their home territories. They carried with them the story of what had happened. Not a single human ship had been lost. Some were damaged. A few had casualties, but none had been destroyed. On Earth, Director Chen watched the final reports come in. The invasion was over. The Coalition was broken. And now came the most important part. She activated the galaxy-wide communication system that humans had been building in secret for years. Every major world in Council space would receive this message. Every station, every ship, everyone would hear what humanity had to say. Chen appeared on screens across the galaxy. She stood in a simple room wearing a formal suit, her expression calm and cold. People of the Galactic Council, she began. 10 years ago, you voted to expel humanity from Council space. You called us too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous. You gave us 10 years to leave and we complied. She paused, letting her words sink in. Today, 12 of your species attempted to invade our territory. They brought 15,000 warships. They believed we were weak. They believed we were disorganized. They believed wrong. Another pause. Chen's expression did not change. 14,000 of those ships were destroyed. The survivors are retreating to their homes in shame. Not one human vessel was lost. This is the reality you now face. She leaned forward slightly. For 200 years, humanity asked for permission to join you. We followed your rules. We respected your authority. We tried to be part of your council. You refused us. You cast us out. You made us your enemy. Her voice grew harder. Now you will learn the difference between humans who ask for permission and humans who do not. You wanted us gone. You have your wish. But understand this. We will never ask for your approval again. We will never beg for membership. We will never submit to your rules. She stood straight, her final words carrying across the galaxy. From this day forward, humanity writes its own destiny. You had your chance to guide us. You chose rejection. Now live with the consequences of that choice. The message ended. Across Council space, billions of beings sat in stunned silence. The humans had not asked for war, but they had been ready for it. And they had won with such overwhelming force that no one could doubt their power. The question now was, what would humanity do next? The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the most crowded in recorded history. Every seat was filled. Delegates who had not attended in decades came rushing back. The chamber buzzed with fear and angry voices. Speaker Thexelon called for order, but it took several minutes for the noise to die down. When he finally spoke, his voice was not as confident as it once had been. The Council must decide how to respond to the human situation, he announced. The invasion by Coalition forces has failed. Human military capability far exceeds our previous estimates. We must determine our next course of action. A delegate from the Vrakan Confederacy stood. His voice shook with rage and fear. The humans destroyed our fleet. Thousands of ships! We demand the Council take action. We demand justice! Another voice called out from across the chamber. You invaded their territory. What did you expect? The Council told you we would not help you. This is your own fault. Arguments broke out across the chamber. Some wanted to organize a council military response. Others wanted to negotiate. Many simply wanted to pretend the humans did not exist and hope they stayed away. In the middle of the chaos, a message arrived. It was addressed to the council from Director Chen of Earth. Thexulon ordered it displayed. Chen's face appeared on the main screen. The chamber fell silent. Members of the Galactic Council, she began. Humanity has no desire for war with the Council as a whole. We did not start the conflict that just ended. We defended ourselves. Nothing more, she paused, then continued. However, the old arrangement is over. Humanity will not accept being treated as a lesser species. We will not beg for permission to exist. We offer the Council new terms. First, any species may trade with humanity on equal terms. We welcome peaceful relations and fair commerce. Second, any aggression toward humans or human interests will be met with immediate and overwhelming military response. There will be no warnings. There will be no negotiations. There will only be consequences. Third, humanity will maintain military fleets wherever we choose. We will patrol our borders and protect our interests. The Council may object to this. The Council cannot prevent it. Fourth, we will share technology and knowledge with species that treat us as equals. We will help those who help us. We will oppose those who oppose us. Chen's expression hardened. These are not requests. These are not suggestions. These are facts. You may accept them or not. Your acceptance changes nothing. This is the new reality. The message ended. The chamber erupted again. Many delegates were outraged. How dare the humans make demands? How dare they threaten the Council? But some were more practical. The humans had destroyed 15,000 warships without losing a single vessel. They had weapons the Council could not match. They had clearly been preparing for this for a decade. What could the Council actually do? Thexulon called for order once more. The Council must vote. Do we accept these human terms or do we organize a military response? Before the vote could begin, alarms sounded throughout the station. Every sensor screen lit up with warnings. Ships were approaching. Lots of ships. Human ships. 50 Prometheus-class warships appeared in orbit above 50 different Council homeworlds simultaneously. They had arrived without warning, traveling through routes no one knew existed. They simply appeared as if from nowhere. The ships did nothing. They did not fire. They did not threaten. They simply hovered in orbit visible to everyone below. And on every ship a timer appeared. 24 hours, the message was clear. Humanity could strike any world it wanted at any time with no warning. The Council's defenses were meaningless. Their fleets were too slow. Their technology was too old. Admiral Okonkwo sat on the bridge of the Terran Defiance watching the reaction from Council space. She had personally planned this operation. The simultaneous arrival at 50 worlds required precise coordination and advanced jump technology the Council did not even know existed. Admiral, we are receiving thousands of communications from Council governments, her communications officer reported. Most are demanding we leave. Some are begging. A few are threatening. Ignore them all, Okonkwo ordered. We hold position until the vote is complete. In the Council chambers, panic had taken hold. Delegates screamed at each other. Some demanded military action. Others wanted to evacuate their homeworlds. A few simply sat in shock. Thexulon tried to maintain order, but he had lost control. For the first time in his 300 years on the Council, he felt real fear. The humans had not just defeated an invasion force. They had demonstrated the ability to strike anywhere, anytime. A senior delegate from the Mirren Collective stood and spoke loudly enough to be heard over the noise. Enough, she shouted. We must face reality. The humans can destroy any world they choose. They can eliminate any species they want. They are giving us a choice. Accept their terms and have peace, or reject them and face consequences we cannot survive. She looked around the chamber. I say we accept. We vote yes to their terms. We acknowledge them as equals. Because the alternative is extinction. Slowly, other voices joined hers. Practical minds recognized that this was not a negotiation. This was a choice between survival and pride. And pride was not worth dying for. Thexulon knew he had lost. He called for the vote with a voice that had lost all its former confidence. The result was overwhelming. 809 votes in favor of accepting human terms, 38 against. The Council had spoken. The moment the vote was certified, the human ships vanished from orbit around the 50 worlds. The timers disappeared. It was as if they had never been there, except for the sensor recordings that proved they had. Director Chen Wei received the news in her office on Earth. She allowed herself a small smile. It was done. Humanity had achieved in 10 years what 200 years of diplomacy had failed to accomplish. Not through asking permission. Through demonstrating power. 1 week later, Chen returned to the council station. But this time she did not stand in the judgment pit. She walked into the main chamber through the delegate entrance, escorted by an honor guard. The council had redesigned part of the chamber. A new seat had been added. A permanent seat, positioned prominently where everyone could see it. The seat for the Terran delegation, Chen took her place. Around her, delegates from 847 species watched in silence, some with respect, some with fear, some with resentment, but all with understanding humanity had earned this seat. Not through votes or politics, through strength and the will to use it. Thexolon stood to officially recognize Earth's new status. His voice was hollow, defeated. The Council recognizes humanity as a full-member species with all rights and privileges. Welcome to the Galactic Council. Chen nodded but did not smile. Thank you, Speaker. Humanity looks forward to working with the Council on equal terms. She emphasized the word equal. Everyone understood. After the session ended, Chen stood alone in the chamber for a moment, looking at the empty seats above her. She thought back to 10 years ago, standing in the judgment pit, hearing the vote that expelled humanity. They had called humans too dangerous, too aggressive, too unpredictable. They had been right, but being right had not saved them. Humanity had asked for permission to join the Council. When that failed, humanity had built the strength to make permission irrelevant. They had proven that the galaxy's rules only applied to those too weak to write their own. The Council had voted against Earth. They had called it their decision, but that vote had been their final mistake. Because in rejecting humanity, they had created exactly what they feared most. Humans who no longer needed their approval. Humans who would take their place in the galaxy not as supplicants but as equals, or perhaps as something more. Chen turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the empty chamber stood as a monument to the lesson the Council had learned too late. Never force a peaceful species to become a warrior race. Because when they do, they will be very, very good at it.